Belize is a small country located in Central America. It shares its borders with Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduras. Unlike most Central American countries, it was a British rather than Spanish colony. I chose Belize because there's a gentleman in my office who owns a condo there, travels there frequently, and always comes back with great stories and beautiful pictures. I have also read many articles about people from the U.S. retiring there, so I thought it would be nice to learn more about it. The Spanish originally came to Belize in the 16th and 17th centuries. British buccaneers and logwood cutters settled on the coast in the mid-17th century and would carry out acts of piracy against Spanish vessels that were heading to Europe. Spain and Britain signed treaties in 1763 and 1783 that allowed British subjects to export logwood and mahogany. In 1798, the British overcame Spain's final attempt to remove them by force. The British settlers began importing African slaves in the early 18th century to cut logwood and then mahogany. Beginning in the early 19th century, a mixed population of Carib Indians and Africans that were exiled from British colonies in the eastern Caribbean settled on the southern coast. An indigenous uprising in the Yucatan that began in 1847 resulted in several thousand Spanish-speaking refugees settling in northern Belize. This has all resulted in Belize being ethnically diverse and includes a large proportion of immigrants. English is the official language, but most of the population is multilingual. Anglicans established the first church in the early 19th century, and both Baptist and Methodist missionaries followed. The Roman Catholic Church was established in 1851, and about 2/5 of the population is that religion, and about 1/3 is Protestant. After independence, the ratified constitutions were based and included codes of ethics rooted in the religious practices that were brought to them by the British. It has left them with laws based in superstition. The concept of separation of church and state is almost foreign to them. The church plays a large part in national politics. Homosexuality was only legalized in 2016. Not gay marriage, but homosexuality itself was illegal up until last year. Originally, land ownership was restricted to Europeans. The Maya and large population of freed slaves could not own land. The Maya could only rent land or live on reservations. While less severe, there are still policies in place that all but annex the modern Maya from leaving their reservations. Belizean independence represented two things. To the British, it represented an opportunity to reduce its financial obligations in maintaining the colony. To the U.S., it was a means to counter Soviet expansion in the region. There was a perceived communist threat in the region from Cuba, Nicaragua, and El Salvador. The U.S. thought Belize would make a valuable political ally given its location bordered by Honduras and Guatemala. In 1960, an agreement was made to move towards Belize becoming self-governing. This occurred on January 1st, 1965. Due to a continued border dispute between Guatemala and Belize, the British maintained a military presence which began to increase by the mid-70s. The British wanted to grant Belize full independence, which would enable them to withdraw British forces. Cuba's decision to back Belizean independence was a concern because the U.S. could not allow Cuba to gain influence in Belize, as they feared this would represent an expansion of Soviet interests in the region. The U.S. sought to improve its ties with Guatemala to monitor the possible spread of communism throughout the region. Belize achieved full independence from the UK on September 21st, 1981. The U.S. wanted an extended British commitment to defend Belize against external aggression and communist influence. President Reagan wrote a letter to Margaret Thatcher on August 4th, 1983, in which he said, "I wish to underline the importance we place on the continued presence of your military forces in Belize, particularly while the territorial dispute with Guatemala remains unresolved." The U.S. had its own objectives. It wanted to establish closer relations with Guatemala with the possibility of resuming arms sales to them, as well as cementing the proposed Trans-Guatemala pipeline deal. Even so, the UK encouraged U.S. participation in the mediation. Belize has a large trade deficit and heavy foreign debt burden, which presents significant challenges to the country. The Belize government has a U.S. $547 million bond due in 2029. In 2017, Belize has worked to restructure their debt. This is the second time in 4 years. The amendment proposed comprised of reducing the coupon from 5% to 4%. It was due to increase to 6.767% in August of this year. They also wanted to change from semi-annual principal payments beginning in 2019 to 3 equal installments in February of 2036, 2037, and 2038. Unfortunately, the debt is actually an investment for bondholders. Investors are concerned with making money off of the loans to Belize rather than actually helping the country financially. Large-scale agriculture replaced forestry as the mainstay of the Belizean economy. This increase in agriculture, along with increasing coastal development, illegal logging, and slash-and-burn agriculture, could result in the forest cover decreasing to 58% by 2020. Belize produces 200,000 tons of solid waste per year from household and commercial establishments. While this is not necessarily a high amount for the region, they do not have the ability to properly dispose of the waste. This is currently causing health issues and land and water pollution. The pollution has already caused harm to Belize's barrier reef system. None of the landfills are properly sealed to prevent leaching of pollutants into the groundwater. Inadequate liquid waste management is contributing to natural resource degradation in addition to raising health implications. Belize's primary source of foreign income is tourism. This is partly a result of an increase in cruise ship arrivals. With over 800,000 visitors annually, the liquid waste issue is further exacerbated by cruise ships. Belize lacks the appropriate infrastructure to deal with such a large number of visitors. Belize also lies within the hurricane belt, and there is the constant threat of hurricanes, which due to climate change are expected to increase in frequency and intensity. There are 1,594 miles of roads in Belize, of which only 303 miles are paved. Tropical storms and hurricanes often cause damage to Belize's infrastructure. Belize is a beautiful country with a diverse ethnic population. While Belize is trying to Americanize, it seems to be suffering from growing pains. Improvements in their infrastructure are desperately needed. This will help to preserve their ecosystem, which I believe will only be beneficial to them in the future as it can promote tourism. Not everyone is interested in a quick stop while traveling on a cruise ship.